Princess Zara stood quietly in her favorite garden, watching the twin moons rise over the crystal towers of her home planet. The Villani Empire was known across the galaxy for its peace and beauty. Every building was made from smooth, glowing stones that changed color with the time of day. The people spoke in soft voices and moved with gentle grace. Violence was something they only heard about in stories from distant worlds. Zara had lived her whole life inside the palace walls. At 23, she was considered young for a Villani princess. Her people lived for hundreds of years, so there was no rush for her to take on royal duties. She spent her days reading ancient texts, studying art, and walking through the peaceful gardens. Her tutors praised her for being thoughtful and kind, but they also worried that she was too shy and nervous for royal responsibilities. The princess enjoyed the quiet evening in her private garden. This space belonged only to her, hidden behind tall flowering walls that sparkled like jewels. Here she could think without anyone watching or judging her. The air smelled sweet from the purple flowers that bloomed only at night. Small creatures that looked like tiny flying lights danced between the plants, creating a magical glow. Suddenly, a terrible noise broke the peaceful silence. A loud roar filled the air, followed by the sound of something crashing through the atmosphere. Zara looked up to see a ball of fire streaking across the sky. The burning object was heading straight for her garden. She should have run to safety, but fear made her freeze in place. The crashed ship hit the ground hard, sending dirt and broken plants flying everywhere. Smoke poured from the twisted metal. Zara had never seen anything like it. The ships on her world were smooth and silent, designed for beauty rather than speed or power. This ship looked like it was built for war. For several moments, nothing moved except the smoke rising from the wreckage. Then a section of the ship opened with a loud bang. A figure climbed out, moving carefully but with purpose. Even from a distance, Zara could tell this person was different from anyone she had ever seen. The stranger was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing dark clothing that looked practical rather than decorative. When he turned toward her, she saw his face clearly for the first time. His features were sharp and strong, with intense eyes that seemed to see everything at once. There was something about the way he carried himself that spoke of confidence and strength. This was clearly not a Villani. Will Thompson had been flying for 3 days straight, trying to escape the pirates who had attacked the civilian transport he was protecting. His fighter ship was badly damaged, and his fuel was nearly gone when he spotted the peaceful planet below. He had not planned to crash in what looked like someone's private garden, but he had run out of choices. As he climbed out of his ruined ship, Will quickly checked for immediate dangers. His training as a human military officer had taught him to always assess his surroundings first. What he saw surprised him. Beautiful crystal buildings rose in the distance, and the garden around him was like something from a dream. Then he noticed the young woman standing frozen near a fountain. She was clearly not human. Her skin had a soft blue tint that seemed to glow in the moonlight. Her hair was silver and moved gently even though there was no wind. She wore flowing robes that seemed to be made from liquid starlight. But what struck Will most was the look of pure terror on her face. "Are you hurt?" Will asked, taking a step toward her. He kept his voice gentle, recognizing that she was frightened. Zara's heart began beating so fast she thought it might burst. The stranger's voice was deeper than any Villani voice, and there was power in it even when he spoke softly. She tried to answer but found she could not make any sound come out. No one had ever looked at her the way this person was looking at her now. His gaze was direct and focused, as if she was the most important thing in the world at that moment. "I'm sorry about your garden," Will continued, glancing at the damage his ship had caused. "I didn't have anywhere else to land." He took another careful step closer. "My name is Will. I'm not going to hurt you." Finally, Zara managed to find her voice, though it came out much quieter than she intended. "I am Princess Zara," she whispered. "Are you injured?" Will was surprised to learn she was royalty, but it explained the beautiful private garden and her obviously expensive clothes. What concerned him more was that she looked ready to faint from fear. "I have some cuts and bruises, but nothing serious," he said. "I'm more worried about those pirates who were chasing me. They might follow me here." The word pirates made Zara's eyes grow even wider. She had read about such dangerous people in her studies, but they seemed like creatures from scary stories. Not real threats. "Pirates?" she managed to say. Will noticed how the word affected her and realized this world probably had no experience with violence. "They attacked a civilian ship I was protecting," he explained. "I led them away, but they're persistent. Your people should be warned. Zara's mind raced. She knew she should call the palace guards and report the crash to her father, the emperor, but something held her back. This human warrior had risked his life to protect innocent people. He had led dangerous enemies away from civilians, even though it meant crashing on a strange world. His concern for others, even strangers, was something she had never encountered before. "Follow me," she said suddenly, surprising herself with her boldness. "I know a place where you can hide while your injuries heal." Will raised an eyebrow. "You want to help me?" "You don't even know me." Zara's hands trembled as she gathered her courage. "You protected innocent people. That makes you a good person." Her voice was barely above a whisper, but there was determination in it. As she led him toward a hidden entrance in the garden wall, Zara wondered what she was doing. Her heart was still racing, and being near this intense human made her feel things she had never experienced. But for the first time in her life, she felt like she was doing something truly important. Zara led Will through a narrow path hidden behind flowering vines. Her hands shook as she pushed aside the plants to reveal a small door, carved into what looked like solid rock. Behind the door was a secret room that had been her private retreat since childhood. The space was filled with soft cushions, ancient books, and glowing crystals that provided gentle light. "This is my sanctuary," Zara said quietly, her voice trembling. "No one else knows about this place. You will be safe here." Will looked around the beautiful room with appreciation. Everything was designed for comfort and peace. Soft music seemed to come from the walls themselves, and the air smelled like flowers and rain. It was completely different from the military ships and rough camps he was used to. "Thank you," Will said, settling carefully onto one of the cushions. "This is incredible." "You built this yourself?" Zara nodded, though she kept her distance from him. Even in the larger space, his presence seemed to fill the room. "I found this cave when I was young and made it my own special place. Let me tend to your injuries." She moved to a cabinet and began gathering supplies. Her people had advanced healing technology, but she had always preferred the traditional methods her grandmother taught her. As she approached Will with bandages and healing oils, her heart began racing again. "You don't have to do this," Will said gently. "I can take care of myself." "You are my guest," Zara replied, though her voice was barely a whisper. "It is my duty to help you." As she began cleaning a cut on Will's arm, Zara was amazed by how different human skin felt from Villani skin. Where her people were soft and cool, his skin was warm and textured with small scars. Each mark told a story of danger and survival that was completely foreign to her sheltered life. "How did you get this one?" she asked, pointing to a long scar across his shoulder. Will glanced at the mark. "Pirates attacked a mining colony about 6 months ago. They were taking families as prisoners to sell as slaves. My unit had to move fast to save them." Zara's hands stopped moving. Slaves! The concept was so alien to her that she could barely understand it. "Some species capture others to force them to work without payment," Will explained. "It's one of the worst crimes in the galaxy. That's why humans fight so hard against pirates and slavers." As Will continued talking, Zara found herself drawn into stories that were both terrifying and fascinating. He told her about rescue missions where humans risked everything to save complete strangers. He described battles where human ships, smaller and weaker than enemy vessels, won through clever tactics and pure determination. "Humans never give up," Will said, his eyes bright with passion. "Even when the odds are impossible, even when everyone says we should retreat, we find a way to keep fighting. Not because we love war, but because we love the people we're protecting." Zara had to pause in her healing work because her hands were shaking too badly to continue. Will's voice carried such intensity when he spoke about protecting others. His whole body seemed to vibrate with energy and purpose. She had never met anyone who felt things so strongly. "Are you afraid when you fight?" she asked quietly. "Terrified," Will admitted with a laugh. "Fear keeps you alive, but humans have learned to act despite fear, not wait until fear goes away." This idea was revolutionary to Zara. In her culture, people avoided anything that caused fear or discomfort. They believed in finding peaceful solutions to all problems. The thought of deliberately doing something frightening was beyond her understanding. "But what if you get hurt? What if you die?" she asked. Will's expression became serious. "Then at least I die knowing I did everything I could to help others. Humans believe that protecting innocent people is worth any risk." Zara finished bandaging his wounds in silence, her mind spinning with new ideas. Everything about this human challenged what she thought she knew about life. his willingness to face danger, his passionate commitment to strangers, his absolute refusal to back down from what he believed was right. It all made her feel small and sheltered. "You think I'm weak?" she said suddenly, voicing the fear that had been growing in her mind. Will looked at her with surprise. "Why would I think that? I have never fought anyone. I have never been in danger. I spend my days reading and walking in gardens while you risk your life for others. Strength isn't just about fighting," Will said firmly. "You helped me tonight even though you were scared. You brought a complete stranger into your secret place and trusted me not to hurt you. That took courage." Before Zara could respond, they heard voices outside the hidden door. Palace guards were searching the gardens, probably investigating the crash site. Zara's face went pale with fear. "Princess Zara, are you in the East Gardens?" called a guard's voice. Instantly, Will was on his feet, positioning himself between Zara and the door. His whole body shifted into a fighting stance, and his hand moved to where his weapon would normally be. The transformation from gentle patient to dangerous warrior happened so fast it took Zara's breath away. "Stay behind me," Will whispered, his voice now hard and commanding. Zara's heart hammered in her chest, but not just from fear of discovery. Watching Will immediately move to protect her, seeing him ready to fight an entire squad of guards if necessary, created feelings she had no words for. Her hands trembled so violently she had to clasp them together to make them stop. "They won't hurt me," she managed to say. "They're my father's guards." "I don't care whose guards they are," Will replied quietly. "Until I know you're safe, I'm not letting anyone near you." The guards moved closer, their voices getting louder. Zara knew they would eventually search everywhere, including her sanctuary. She had to make a choice: reveal Will's presence or try to mislead the guards. Either option terrified her, but Will's unwavering protection gave her a strange new feeling of strength. "Trust me," she whispered to Will, then called out loudly, "I'm here. I was reading and didn't hear you calling." As footsteps approached the hidden door, Zara wondered how her quiet life had become so complicated in just one evening. But looking at Will, still ready to defend her against any threat, she realized she didn't want to go back to her simple, safe existence. For the first time in her life, she felt truly alive. Over the next 3 days, Zara found herself returning to the hidden sanctuary more often than she ever had before. She told herself she was just checking on Will's recovery, but deep down she knew the real reason. His stories about human courage and determination fascinated her in ways she couldn't explain. Each morning, she would bring fresh bandages and healing supplies, though Will's injuries were healing quickly with her advanced medical technology. She also brought food from the palace kitchens, claiming she needed extra meals for her studies. The kitchen staff thought nothing of it, as the princess was known for her quiet habits. "You don't need to keep taking care of me," Will said on the third morning, as Zara arrived with another basket of food. "I'm feeling much better. The healing process requires careful monitoring," Zara replied, though they both knew this wasn't entirely true. She busied herself checking his bandages to avoid looking directly at him. Will had noticed how nervous she became whenever their eyes met, but he also saw something else. Each day she seemed a little more curious, a little more willing to ask questions about his life and experiences. "Tell me more about human colonies," Zara said as she prepared tea using leaves from her private garden. "In my studies I read that humans spread across the galaxy very quickly." Will accepted the cup she offered, careful not to let their fingers touch as she clearly wasn't ready for that yet. "Humans are explorers by nature," he explained. "When we discovered space travel, we couldn't resist seeing what was out there. Some people called us crazy for leaving safe planets to build new homes on dangerous worlds." "Weren't you afraid of the unknown?" Zara asked, settling on a cushion across from him. She kept what she thought was a safe distance, though even from there his presence seemed to affect her breathing. "Of course we were afraid," Will said with a smile. "But humans have learned that fear often points us toward the most important things we need to do. We were afraid of staying in one place and never growing, so we chose to explore instead." This idea struck Zara deeply. In her culture, fear was seen as a warning to avoid something. The thought that fear could actually guide someone toward growth was completely new to her. "I've been afraid of many things my whole life," she admitted quietly. "My tutors say I need to be braver to be a good leader, but I don't know how." Will set down his tea and looked at her seriously. "What do you think about when you're alone? What ideas do you have about how to help your people?" Zara was surprised by the question. No one had ever asked her for her own thoughts about leadership. "I think my people are wonderful, but maybe too protected," she said slowly. "We've been safe for so long that we don't know how to handle real problems anymore." "That's an intelligent observation," Will said. "What would you do about it?" The princess felt her heart speed up, but this time it wasn't just from nervousness. Will was actually listening to her ideas and treating them as valuable. "I would want to create programs where young Villani could learn about other cultures and challenges," she said, her voice growing stronger. "Maybe even exchange programs with other peaceful species." "That's brilliant," Will said, and his genuine enthusiasm made Zara's cheeks turn a deeper shade of blue. "Have you shared this idea with your advisors?" "No," Zara admitted. "They think I'm too young and inexperienced. They prefer to make decisions without asking for my input." Will's expression darkened slightly. "That's their mistake. You have insights they don't. Because you see things from a different perspective. Age doesn't determine wisdom." For the first time in her life, Zara felt like someone truly believed in her abilities. The feeling was both thrilling and overwhelming. She had to look away from Will's encouraging gaze because it made her feel things she didn't understand. "Tell me about human families," she said, changing the subject to something safer. "How do they teach children to be brave?" Will's face softened as he thought about home. "Human parents don't try to eliminate all dangers from their children's lives. Instead, they teach them how to handle difficulties. We have a saying, 'Smooth seas never made skilled sailors.'" Zara repeated the phrase quietly, turning it over in her mind. "So challenges make people stronger." "Exactly. Humans believe that overcoming small difficulties prepares you for bigger ones. We don't wait until we feel confident to try new things. We try new things to build confidence." This conversation continued for hours, with Zara asking questions about everything from human education to their approach to friendship. With each answer, she felt her worldview expanding. Will spoke about humans who had failed many times before succeeding, about communities that had come together during disasters, about individuals who had found strength they didn't know they possessed. "You make humans sound fearless," Zara said as the afternoon light began to fade. "We're not fearless at all," Will corrected her. "We're just stubborn. When something scares us but we know it's important, we do it anyway. We call it courage, but it's really just refusing to let fear make our decisions for us." Zara was quiet for a long moment, processing this idea. "I've let fear make all my decisions," she realized aloud. "That's not your fault," Will said gently. "Your culture taught you that fear means danger. But you can learn a different way. You're already starting to." "How?" Zara asked, confused. "You helped me when you were terrified. You've been visiting me even though I make you nervous. You just shared ideas about leadership even though you're afraid of being judged. You're already acting despite fear." Zara stared at him in amazement. She had been so focused on how scared she felt around him that she hadn't noticed she was actually doing brave things. Will's warm smile of encouragement made her heart race so fast she thought she might faint. "I need to go," she said suddenly, standing up quickly. "The evening meal will be served soon and people will notice if I'm not there." "Of course," Will said, understanding her need to retreat when the emotions became too intense. "Thank you for the food and the conversation." As Zara hurried toward the door, she paused and looked back at him. "Will, thank you for listening to my ideas. No one has ever done that before." "Your ideas are worth hearing," he replied simply. Zara fled the sanctuary with her heart pounding, but for the first time, the feeling wasn't entirely unpleasant. Will's belief in her had awakened something inside her that she didn't fully understand yet. As she walked back to the palace, she found herself thinking, not about how nervous he made her, but about the person he seemed to think she could become. That night, instead of reading her usual gentle stories, she found herself researching human colonies and their methods of education. She was beginning to understand that there was a whole galaxy of possibilities beyond the safe walls of her palace, and maybe, with Will's encouragement, she might be brave enough to explore them. On the fourth morning, Zara woke to the sound of alarms echoing across the palace. The peaceful chimes that normally announced the dawn were replaced by urgent warning signals she had never heard before. Her heart immediately began racing as she rushed to her window and looked up at the sky. 3 dark ships hung in the atmosphere above her planet like angry storm clouds. Even from a distance, she could see they were nothing like the beautiful vessels her people used for travel. These ships were built for war, with sharp edges and weapon ports that gleamed menacingly in the morning light. Zara's first thought was of Will, alone in her sanctuary. She grabbed her cloak and ran through the palace corridors, ignoring the confused voices of servants and officials. Everyone seemed to be moving without purpose, unsure of what to do when faced with their first real crisis in generations. When she reached the hidden room, she found Will already awake and alert, studying the ceiling as if he could see through it to the ships above. "How many?" he asked without turning around. "3 ships," Zara gasped, out of breath from running. "The same ones that chased you?" Will nodded grimly. "They tracked my ship's energy signature. I'm sorry, Zara. I brought this danger to your world." Zara wanted to tell him it wasn't his fault, but she was too frightened to speak clearly. The idea of actual violence coming to her peaceful planet was beyond anything she had imagined. Her legs felt weak and she had to sit down on one of the cushions. "What will they want?" she managed to ask. "Information about human military movements, probably," Will said, finally turning to look at her. "And they'll take prisoners to sell as slaves. Your people won't know how to defend themselves." The thought of her gentle, scholarly people being captured and sold like objects made Zara feel sick. "Our guards have weapons, but they've never used them for anything except ceremonies," she whispered. Will was already moving, checking his equipment and testing his injured arm. "I need to contact your military leaders," he said. "These pirates are dangerous, but they're not unbeatable. Your people just need to know what they're facing." "The council will never listen to an outsider," Zara said, fear making her voice shake. "They'll want to negotiate or surrender rather than fight. Then innocent people will suffer," Will replied firmly. "I can't let that happen." As if summoned by their conversation, a voice boomed across the planet from speakers in every building. The pirates were demanding that the human warrior be turned over to them, along with tribute payments and 20 young Villani to serve as workers. If these demands weren't met within 6 hours, they would begin attacking civilian areas. Zara watched Will's face change as he heard the demands. His jaw tightened and his eyes took on the same intense focus she had seen when the guards approached her sanctuary. She realized that this was what he looked like when he was preparing for battle. "I have to turn myself in," Will said quietly. "Maybe if I surrender, they'll leave your people alone." "No," Zara said, surprising herself with the force of her voice. "They won't keep their word. You said pirates can't be trusted." Will looked at her with respect. "You're learning to think like a strategist," he said. "You're right, they'll take me and still attack your planet. But I can't hide while innocent people are threatened." For a moment, Zara felt the familiar urge to retreat into safety. She could return to the palace and let the adults handle this crisis. She could hide in her room until it was over, whether that meant surrender or devastation. But then she looked at Will, already preparing to sacrifice himself for people he had never met. And something changed inside her. His absolute commitment to protecting others, his refusal to let fear control his actions, and his unwavering belief in doing what was right filled her with a strange new energy. "Take me with you," she said suddenly. Will stared at her in shock. "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. I'm the princess," Zara said, standing up straighter than she ever had before. "The council will listen to me if I insist, and my people need to see that even I'm willing to fight for them. Zara, these aren't palace guards who will treat you with respect," Will warned. "Pirates are violent and unpredictable." Zara's hands were shaking and her heart was beating so fast she could barely breathe, but she forced herself to speak clearly. "You told me that humans act despite fear, not without it. I'm terrified, but I won't hide while my people are in danger." Will studied her face for a long moment and she could see him recognizing something new in her expression. "Are you sure about this?" he asked seriously. "No," Zara admitted, "but I'm going to do it anyway." A slow smile spread across Will's face. "Now you're thinking like a human," he said with pride. They quickly planned their approach. Zara would use her royal authority to demand an emergency council meeting, while Will would provide tactical information about pirate weaknesses and strategies. Together, they would convince the Villani leaders to mount an organized defense instead of simply surrendering. As they prepared to leave the sanctuary, Zara felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they were attempting. Being near Will during a crisis was almost impossible. His commanding presence and tactical brilliance made her feel dizzy with emotions she still didn't understand. But she also felt something else, a growing certainty that this was what she was meant to do. "Will," she said as they reached the door. "Yes?" "Thank you for believing I could be brave." "I never had to believe it," he replied. "You always were brave. You just needed a reason to show it." As they stepped out into the chaos of the palace, Zara realized that everything in her life was about to change. The scared, sheltered princess who had found Will in her garden 3 days ago was becoming someone entirely different. She was still terrified, still overwhelmed by Will's intensity, but she was no longer willing to let fear make her decisions. For the first time in her life, Princess Zara was ready to fight for something that mattered more than her own comfort, and with Will beside her, she almost believed they might actually win. The real test was just beginning, but Zara was no longer the same person who had trembled at the sight of a crashed ship. She was becoming someone who could stand beside a human warrior and face any danger that threatened the people she loved. The emergency council chamber had never seen such chaos. Villani advisors spoke over each other in rising voices, something that would have been unthinkable just days before. Some argued for immediate surrender, others for attempting to hide until the pirates left, and a few suggested trying to buy them off with treasure. Zara stood at the entrance with Will, watching her people struggle with their first real crisis in centuries. Her heart was still racing, but not just from fear of the situation. Standing next to Will as he analyzed the room with tactical precision made her feel that familiar, overwhelming sensation, but now she understood it differently. "They're scared," Will observed quietly, "but they're not panicking." "That's good." "Father," Zara called out, her voice cutting through the noise. The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at the princess they had always seen as too timid for leadership. Emperor Dane looked surprised to see his daughter in the council chamber, especially accompanied by an obvious outsider. "Zara, you should be in the safety bunkers with the other civilians," he said gently. "I'm not a civilian," Zara replied, walking into the center of the room with Will beside her. "I'm your heir, and these are my people too. We need to hear what Will has to say about fighting these pirates." Several advisors immediately began objecting. "We don't negotiate with outsiders during a crisis," said the chief counselor. "And we certainly don't take military advice from the person who brought this danger to us." Zara felt her old instincts rising, the urge to step back and let others make decisions. But then she looked at Will, who gave her an encouraging nod, and she found strength she didn't know she possessed. "Will didn't bring danger to us," she said firmly. "He led it away from innocent civilians and crashed here by accident. Now he's offering to help us protect our people. That makes him exactly the kind of person we should listen to." The room erupted in discussion again, but this time Zara didn't let the noise overwhelm her. She raised her voice with an authority that surprised everyone, including herself. "Enough," she commanded. "Will, tell them what you told me about pirate tactics." Will stepped forward, his presence immediately commanding attention. "Pirates rely on fear and the assumption that their targets won't fight back," he explained. "Your ships are faster and more maneuverable than theirs. Your technology is more advanced. You have every advantage except experience." "We're not warriors," protested the military advisor. "Our people have never fought a real battle." "Neither had the miners on Kepler Station," Will replied. "But when pirates attacked them, they learned fast. They used mining equipment as weapons and coordinated their ships in ways the pirates didn't expect. They won because they refused to give up." Zara watched her father and the other leaders as Will outlined a defense strategy. He explained how their civilian transport ships could be quickly modified to confuse the pirates. He showed them ways to use their planet's communication network to coordinate attacks. Most importantly, he convinced them that they could win if they worked together. "What about the deadline?" asked the Emperor. "They want an answer in 3 hours. "We give them an answer," Zara said, surprising everyone again. "We tell them that Villani don't negotiate with criminals, and that any attempt to harm our people will be met with force." "Zara, that's declaring war," her father said with concern. "No, father," she replied calmly. "That's declaring that we won't be victims." The transformation in the room was remarkable. As the advisors began planning their defense instead of their surrender, their voices became stronger and more confident. Will worked with their military leaders to coordinate ship movements, while Zara used her knowledge of Villani psychology to help everyone overcome their fear of conflict. When the pirates' deadline arrived, they received a message that shocked them. Instead of surrender or negotiation, Princess Zara herself appeared on their communication screen. "This is Princess Zara of the Villani Empire," she said, her voice clear and steady. "Your threats against innocent people are unacceptable. Leave our system immediately or face the consequences." The pirate leader laughed mockingly. "Little princess, you have no idea what real violence looks like. We'll teach you." "You're wrong," Zara replied calmly. "We've learned from someone who understands both violence and honor. We're ready for you." The battle that followed was unlike anything the Villani had ever experienced, but Will's strategies worked perfectly. Their ships, designed for beauty and speed, proved remarkably effective in combat when used cleverly. The pirates, expecting easy targets, found themselves outmaneuvered and confused by tactics they had never encountered. Zara coordinated communications from the palace, her natural understanding of her people helping her relay Will's instructions in ways they could understand and execute. She found that her nervousness around Will had transformed into something else entirely, a deep respect for his expertise and a growing confidence in her own abilities. When the last pirate ship retreated, damaged and defeated, the celebration across the planet was tremendous. But Zara felt something more important than victory. She felt like she had finally become the person she was meant to be. Later that evening, as the festivities continued outside, Zara and Will sat quietly in her sanctuary. The dynamic between them had completely changed. She no longer felt overwhelmed by his presence or tongue-tied by his intensity. "You did something remarkable today," Will said. "You led your people through their first real crisis." "We did it together," Zara corrected him. "But I understand now what you meant about humans acting despite fear. I was terrified the entire time, but I didn't let that stop me." "That's exactly right." Will smiled. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to do what's right even when you're afraid." Zara looked at him thoughtfully. "Will you stay and help us prepare for other challenges? My people have learned they can be strong, but we still have much to learn about the galaxy beyond our world." "I'd be honored to," Will replied, "but not as a teacher to a student. As a partner working with an equal." For the first time since meeting him, Zara felt completely comfortable in Will's presence. She realized that what she had thought was fear of him was actually recognition of the strength she wanted to develop in herself. He had never needed to change to accommodate her timid nature. Instead, he had helped her discover the brave leader she had always been inside. As they planned the new alliance between their peoples, combining Villani wisdom with human courage, Zara knew her life had changed forever. She was no longer the scared princess who had hidden in gardens and books. She was someone who could stand beside a human warrior and face any challenge the galaxy might bring. The timid alien princess was gone, replaced by a confident leader who understood that true strength came not from fearlessness, but from choosing to act with courage when it mattered most.